Hey, good morning. Josh with Josh's Severe Weather. Hope you all are having a great start to the week. Let's talk about the next few weeks. Excuse me, got something in my throat there. Oh my goodness. We are starting to see on the winternet a little bit more talk here about what's going to be some cold, unsettled weather in the eastern United States. Well, this December, let's not be fooled by the time of the year, even though it was so warm back here in November. Hey, did you guys hear about the married snowmen? Or I guess the snowman and the snow woman? They got into an argument. She gave him the cold shoulder. All right. Oh gosh, let's have some fun this morning. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to get to this in a little bit, but we are still looking at what I believe will be the coldest end to December since the year 2010. The area in the darkest blue, I believe, has the best shot at having persistently cold weather and maybe some record cold at some point in that time frame. Whereas the area in light blue will be colder than average. This is my prediction. I'll kind of get into some more details. This is not a snow forecast, by the way. Those of you that live in the southeast know it's going to be cold, and snow is not always a guarantee. We need to have more driving the weather than just cold air coming in from western and central Canada. We're going to have blocking in the northeastern part of the continent, mainly eastern Canada up towards Greenland. An active storm track over the Gulf of Mexico, and just kind of a lot of factors. It's really hard to get it to snow on the Gulf Coast, and even in the Carolinas and Virginia. But, we may have a better than average chance because the cold air will be in place. And sometimes it's just as likely that we see wintry weather on the end or on the tail end of a winter outbreak of cold. As warmer air starts getting circulated, then you have kind of more of a contrast between warmer Gulf waters and much colder air to the north. So that's something I'm going to be drilling down here over the next few weeks. Let's take a look at this week. My biggest concern is heavy rainfall in the Tennessee Valley. This is the European model, and you all can see it's going to be getting wet here in northern Mississippi and Alabama as the day wears on, with an inch possible when we get into places like Huntsville, Alabama, and Gadsden, those areas, Tupelo, Mississippi. And then heading into tonight in North Georgia as well. Unfortunately for these folks, the rain is not going to let up. We've got yet another wave of wet weather coming here towards Wednesday and Thursday. It starts growing northward. So we can see amounts potentially over 2 inches in places like Memphis and northern Arkansas. Kentucky, you guys remember they had a lot of flooding over the summer. Unfortunately, that could be the case again with over 4 inches of rain predicted over the next week in a few places here in southeastern Kentucky. So if you are on the Gulf Coast, it's going to be warm. It's going to be foggy in the mornings, just really murky. No signs of winter coming yet. If you are farther inland across what I call the Mid-South, be prepared for a lot of rain, maybe some thunderstorms here, especially the second half of this week. We'll take a look at temperatures as well. This is weatherbell.com. And I know I'm showing models and I'm using a website that I subscribe to, but I think it helps to kind of visualize what's going on. Here's the 2-meter temperature forecast. So you can see the cold air that we saw early in the weekend over the upper Midwest has kind of left us, and warm air continues to build north. So Texas, Louisiana, high temperatures here in the 70s over the next few days, maybe even an 80 in there at some point. Colder air does start to push back down from central Canada here into the Dakotas. Over the middle of the week, you see some minus 20 pluses. So it's still quite cold up there. But the dividing line from the really cold air and the warm air kind of sits where our area of heavy rain is going to be, right over in here, around and just north of Interstate 40. Very cold air north of I-90. In between the two, really not brutally cold yet. It'll be cold, don't get me wrong. But if you're in Minnesota, temperatures in the teens and 20s is pretty much par for the course. But you can see as we get to the weekend, a push of finally some chillier air down into the south and east. I'm going to show the eastern U.S. Because I feel like I've left Florida out. Florida doesn't always participate in winter, as we all know. That's why we go down there to golf quite a bit in the wintertime. But it was a chilly morning here in the Carolinas where I live. But you guys can see as the week wears on, it does get warmer. But there is kind of a wedge of cool air set up in place tomorrow. The cold air wedge certainly keeps temperatures much cooler, perhaps a little bit below average once you get into the Piedmont and the foothills. So you guys can see this dividing line is very clear. So Charlotte may be pretty cool again tomorrow. You get over to Fayetteville and in eastern North Carolina, especially South Carolina and Georgia, it's going to be much warmer. Eventually, this wedge does work its way out. You guys can see Wednesday is a warmer day with 70s expected. Even though it could be wet, we'll see enough maybe breaks in the cloud cover for it to be a pretty decent afternoon on Wednesday. Thursday starts cooling off just a tiny bit, but still above average. And then much cooler air starts to settle south and east on Friday and into the weekend once again. So if you have plans to do outdoor things, it'll definitely be potentially wet but warmer over the second half of this week, and then drying out and cooler as we get into the weekend, it looks like. Much cooler air still, though, is not in the picture yet through the middle of the month of December. It continues to get delayed just a little bit more, but it is coming, as I'm going to show you guys. You all can see this is the European ensemble. This is a look at the upper air pattern, and a pretty big block of very warm air over Greenland. This typically leads to an active eastern storm track, provided we have the cold air. We don't, though. At this point, it's a strong ridge in the eastern U.S. This should look familiar to you guys over the last few winters. It's been pretty warm overall. But as we head into the middle of the month, you guys can see that even though the block starts weakening over Greenland, we do have a trough moving into the western United States, which is going to activate some of this colder air sitting up over Canada. So as we get later into the month of December, a good chunk of the country is going to see a below average stretch of weather. Is it going to happen this quickly? I mean, I thought maybe it would, but there's definitely a chance that gets delayed a little bit more. So those of you who like cold weather over the Christmas holiday season are going to more than likely see that happen. Now, as far as storm track, again, I'm not going to be able to predict an active storm track, who's going to get what, 2-3 weeks out, but this definitely favors potentially more snow across the northern and eastern parts of the country if this keeps up. And not ruling out anything, of course, in the southeast at this point, but a little bit tougher to try and pin that down this far out. If we take a look over here at the forecast for temperatures, this kind of lines up with the graphic I showed you guys here. Oops, not that one, I'm sorry. This one here, where the climate forecast system over the final week of December is predicting below to much below average temperatures. Now, every model run has not agreed. If you go back about a day, yes, definitely cold in the eastern U.S. The next model run intensified that cold, and then whoops, just kidding, guys. Not quite as cold as we said. Oh, wait, yeah, trending cold again. I like to follow the trends, not the latest model. I've seen this for the last few days where the eastern U.S. continues to trend colder. But the Canadian weeklies, and this is from a few days ago, are latching on to the idea of cold, but not quite as intense. We will see a new run of this coming soon. So if that gets updated, I'll show that to you. European as well, this is from several days ago, still showing that colder look in the east, but the big difference is colder than average weather in the west. Now, if we go back to the model run before, you can see that the trend is colder in the east and not quite as cold in the west. So again, I'm following that trend for you guys here. GFS extended ensemble. Where's the toilet flush sound? I need that. By the way, you guys can probably find it, but a large weather corporation, which remains to be named, put out a Christmas Day forecast and was calling for blowtorch here in the eastern United States, because why not? It's been warm the last couple of Christmases. In fact, was it maybe, last year we were wearing shorts on Christmas in the southeast. The year before it was brutally cold, but just for a couple days. But you guys can see the extreme warm up that's coming in the southeast on this GFS extended. I would not be surprised to see that be delayed. I do think January is going to turn colder with respect to average. That, of course, by no means we're not going to have any winter storms. Just means that record lows are going to be less likely, especially in the eastern and southern United States. But I'm not ready to latch on to the GFS on anything. I mean, that storm predicted Hurricane Ian to hit the Panhandle and weaken 3 days before it hit Southwest Florida. I don't even know how many people that could have killed, but I'm not going to go there. But GFS just has not been reliable to me. A look at potential snow here over a 7-day stretch. You guys can see eastern Canada, Great Lakes, the west areas you would typically see a good threat for snow will likely see that with this colder pattern coming. When we get farther south, the light grays don't get me super excited at this point, but at least there's a chance. So this is taking every single ensemble member, averaging it together and saying, okay, look, there's a chance. When you get into Northern Virginia and in the Appalachians and northward, away from the coast, I think your chances definitely climb. I am not going to show you guys, operational models on day 10, day 14, because it's just going to flip and flop. I posted some teasers on my Facebook page about that yesterday. Yes, certainly there will be some stormy weather in the east, especially the northeast, but we don't know where at this point. So we're not going to go jump on that hype train just yet. But when that does become an issue, I will, of course, let you know. I did talk about a clipper type system bringing potentially a good amount of snow in the Great Lakes. This is Thursday night, and you guys can see it coming out of Iowa overnight and into Illinois. The European model on the latest run, actually, that's not the latest run, is it? There it is. Ah, okay. I see what's going on here. Had the 6Z up. There we go. Whoops. All right, it's not out yet. The 0Z, that's what I was looking at. Shows most of that snow actually going south of I-90 over north central Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. A southern track, which the other models have not shown. Interestingly, this European model shows 5 inches in DC, 4 inches in places like Stafford County, and even maybe some accumulation in the northern parts of the Richmond area. This would be later Friday evening and into early Saturday morning when most of that snow could accumulate. Not saying it's a slam dunk at this point, but this more southern track kind of gets places like Philly and Allentown and New York and Connecticut off the hook from any accumulation. Not ruling it out at this point. We're just going to have to see how much dry air pushes down to the south and east, and this path could very much shift 100 miles north. We've seen a lot of models pinpointing the Poconos and Nepa here, northwestern New Jersey, with potentially some significant snowfall. I do think we're going to see a lot of snow in some places, but it's really hard to pick that out. I mean, if I had to take a guess, it would be, areas east of Johnstown, getting into the Laurel Highlands, maybe parts of northern Indiana, Illinois, and also northwestern Ohio. But again, a little bit too soon. So you can refer to my video from Saturday that shows you where I think the best chance will be. The Canadians backed off on Northern Virginia. The GFS is completely on another planet right now. Maybe it'll come back to our Earth. I don't know. But we'll continue to keep an eye on that for you guys. Some more videos coming on that. Hey, all, I really do appreciate your time. Did want to show you something else really quickly here. This is the European ensemble, the Arctic oscillation. This continues to show a negative Arctic oscillation, which allows cold air to drop down. The Arctic oscillation, when it goes negative, that means the colder air is in the northern hemisphere. On the western hemisphere side, I should say. The North Atlantic oscillation continues to drop down, and that allows for a New England block, but it does, when we get past the 15th, when I think it gets colder, you can see it trends more towards neutral. So really the window for a major blockbuster East Coast storm is going to be next week before that window could potentially shut. Doesn't mean it couldn't go negative again after the 20th. That's something I'll be watching. One other thing though, the Pacific North American oscillation, PNA, this, when it's negative, has a ridge in the east. You guys can see the next 10 days, warm in the east, not a shocker. The flip comes early next week around the 13th. And then the PNA likely to be neutral to positive. And the more positive it gets, the more excited you should start to be about weather potentially in the southeast. This is the PNA for you guys. When it goes more positive, then heights in the east become more negative. That means we've got a better chance for storm development on the East Coast and below average temperatures. A very positive PNA means we very well could see the potential for an East Coast storm, but we need to have a few of the other conditions in place. So if you're rooting on a big storm for the Southeast, you want to see a more positive PNA, a more negative AO, and a more negative NAO. Getting the three to all happen is very rare in La Nina, but certainly could happen. And that's what I'm going to be watching for you guys over the next several weeks here as we head towards Christmas and New Year's. All right, folks, so I really do appreciate your time. Feel free to leave me comments and questions. I really appreciate you guys liking and subscribing. More updates coming on our Facebook page, facebook.com/JoshSevereWX. I hope you all have a great day. Have a blessed week, and we are going to talk soon again. Take care, and let's root for some snow.